Hi, welcome to the High Lady Book Club.
My name is Jessie, and I love podcast discussions and deep dives.
And I'm Katie, and I love all things Sarah J Maas and outlandish theories.
So we combine those loves into a weekly Sarah J Maas discussion podcast. We'll be reading along to her books.
We're diving into Crescent City first, and class is starting now.
This is the English class you don't want to spark note. Hi, welcome back to the High Lady Book Club.
Welcome back. This is our season finale of our very first season of the podcast. We are finishing Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. I can't believe that we are already finished.
I know. I can't believe this is our finale episode.
I know. So if you haven't read along or you haven't finished Crescent City, stop here and start at one of our other episodes, and then come join us when you've read, because there's obviously a lot of spoilers, and I think we should just jump right in because a lot happens as usual in this book.
Yeah, we can finally talk about the whole book in its entirety.
Yes.
It's exciting. All right, so I'll just jump into our recap then. So we're starting with chapter 83, and this is when Bryce is taking Syrinx home after all that shit went down with Micah at Griffin Antiquities. But Bryce does realize that Micah's attempt to use the horn actually did work, and Bryce goes back to the apartment. She's taking Syrinx home, and she arms herself with Danica's sword. She grabs one of Hunt's handguns. And then we realize, or Bryce realizes, that Micah didn't only succeed with his attempt, but it actually opened portals to hell through every gate throughout the city. So there's 7 gates in the city that are all open to hell.
Yeah, and she realizes this because demons are coming out of them from like the pit, like the deepest level of hell. They're all swarming the city, and yeah, it's a disaster.
Yeah. Demons are everywhere. They're killing people left and right. There are sirens going off, and bomb shelters have opened, and then the doors to these shelters automatically close like 1 hour after they're activated. So
right.
Side note, I was thinking like, wow, this city is like really well prepared though for something to happen.
Yeah, that's so true.
I was thinking if something like happened present day, like we'd be screwed.
Yeah, I don't know where a bomb shelter is in my vicinity. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I'll need to get a panic room or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a side note. So Bryce goes to Asphodel Meadows to help protect the humans because they have no magic and there's no Ox units that are there to protect them, like in every other neighborhood.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, while all of this is going down, Hypaxia at the summit is like refusing to sit around while all of this is going on and is trying to leave to help in the city. But then they realize that Micah had disabled or destroyed all means of transportation before he died.
Yeah, she's like the only one who seems to care of like the highest ranking people. Rune and Hunt and all of them seem to care, but the only one that has any sort of authority that is like, oh my god, we have to do something, is Hypaxia. The Autumn King, Sabine, they're all just sitting there.
Yeah, they're all just sitting there watching this all unfold.
I know. Just horrible people.
Yeah. And Sandria tells them that the Asteri have ordered them all to stay and that help is going to be coming to the city, that the Asteri is sending help.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the city, Ethan disobeys a direct order from Sabine to stay in Moonwood, and he ends up joining Bryce in Asphodel Meadows to help protect the humans, and also other like shifters canines and animals come to help protect them as well. And Bryce and Ethan are fighting alongside each other, and the shelter doors are starting to close, and there's only room for like one more person, and Bryce shoves Ethan inside and then is left alone in the city, like with all this, like with hell literally breaking loose.
Yeah, literally in hell. I love this scene. I feel like, you know, they clearly had a friendship before, and we didn't get to see much of that between Ethan and Bryce, but I love this whole scene because it's like he defies the orders to go help her, you know, when she's calling for help and nobody's coming. I thought that was just really sweet. And then Bryce kind of returns the favor, both for him, but also for the sake of Connor, you know, just kind of shows that she still cares about Connor and just wanting to make sure his brother is okay. And I don't know, that was so sweet. And also just typical Bryce. I feel like she would help like anybody. She would do that for anybody.
Yeah, they do have a really sweet moment, which was nice to see. And so the shelters have closed. She's there with all these demons. Bryce runs to the old square and goes to the Heart Gate. And she calls Hunt's phone, which is still in Sandriel's possession.
Right, because he's still her slave.
Yeah, he's still her slave at this point. And I believe it was Rune who's like, give the phone to Hunt.
Yes.
And Hunt is like assuring Bryce that help is going to come soon. But Bryce is like, it's going to be too late. And she starts like telling Hunt like her goodbye messages to pass on to like her parents and Juniper and Rune. And it's like really, really sad. Like I definitely was like crying reading that part.
I feel like throughout this whole thing, I was just crying. I was tearing up with the Ethan scene. And then, yeah, this has me going, especially when she talks about Randall, her stepfather, and how he's the only true one that mattered. And I thought it was interesting that the Autumn King was like, it was noted that he almost seemed shameful of that. Like, we're seeing a little bit of a different side of him lately.
Yeah, we're seeing that maybe he does have some real like emotions.
Yeah, maybe.
Is it maybe as, I mean, he still seems cold-hearted, but maybe has some feelings under there.
Right, right.
Yeah, I also like feel like I cried a lot these last chapters. Yeah, that part was really sad. And she's telling Hunt that she was waiting for him and that she forgives him for all the shit with the synth. And then she just like runs for the gate. And she starts to glow and basically reveals that she's the heir to the Starborn Fae. And that only her mom, Randall, and Danica knew this. Like no one else has known. And we get a flashback to the motorcycle crash incident with Danica, and it's revealed that Bryce used her light to blind the people that were coming after them, and then she shot them.
Yeah, we finally get the full story on what happened, the whole thing. Yeah.
And I did have an inkling about like the way I remember, like the way that Sarah J Maas wrote something. Like there was a line that she wrote that made me think of like that she was kind of subtly hinting at power, and I was like, yeah, that was right.
Yeah, you did guess it. Always feels good when you guess it.
Yeah, I was like this whole time I knew that there was something that Bryce had. She's not gonna have a not like powerful lead, you know?
Yeah, never. Yeah, always feels good when you guess it.
Yeah, this one was probably an easier guess than other things for sure, but it's also revealed that she has more light than any Starborn since the first wars. Though it is just light and it's not magic.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryce uses her light to command the horn and orders that the gate's portal close, that specific gate. and it does close. But the other 6 other gates are still open, and Bryce is like exhausted at this point.
Right. Yeah, that took a lot out of her to be able to use her star power.
Yeah. And then back at like the conference center at the summit, you know, everyone watching now knows all this about Bryce, that she has this power to open a portal anywhere. And so she's like a huge threat to the Asteri. She's starborn and has the horn embedded in her.
Yeah. And I love when this happens, the Autumn King immediately calls Bryce's mom and is like, you knew and you didn't tell me. And I just love that whole scene. She's like, I've been waiting for this call, and I hope she gives you, you know, just as much hell as you've given her, whatever that line is. I love that whole part.
And it's like, dude, why do you think you have any right to know any of that?
Yeah. Like, I know. And I also feel like it was ridiculous. Like, he's watching her basically about to die, and he calls her mom, and he isn't like, hey, like, Bryce isn't okay. He's just like, how dare you not tell me this?
Right. He's not even saying anything like, our daughter is like in grave danger, surrounded by demons from hell, and like,
right.
Yeah. All he cares about is that he didn't know that she had this power.
Yeah.
Typical piece of shit.
So maybe he's not fully changing, or, you know, he's still clearly the person Bryce knew, but maybe he just has another side to him. I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely he still seems like a bad person overall.
Yeah.
And so Sandriel, they all know this information now, and we see Sandriel kind of like trying to subtly, like, she's sending a message on her phone, and then kind of reveals that the Asteri like know this information and are gonna kind of like do what they need to do, basically saying that they're gonna like kill Bryce because she has this power. And then while Sandriel's distracted, Hypaxia unlocks Hunt's magic like handcuffs, and also dissolves the halo tattoo that binds his power.
Yeah, the Gorsian stone handcuffs, which keep his magic from being able to be used at all.
Yeah, exactly. And then dissolving the halo also means he can like use his full power. So immediately he kills Sandriel after that, which I thought was a cool, like, you could see the foreshadowing then from the conversation they had at like the Med Witch's office, which was like
before they knew she was Hypaxia.
I thought that was pretty cool. And he like is holding up her like head, like Sandriel's head, and all the angels like kneel to him. And it mentioned like again about his power, that he's like the only one on the planet that has this power, and it's a power that hasn't been seen in like centuries. So there's a lot.
We'll definitely have to discuss all of that, because I feel like there's a lot there.
So we'll get into that more. And then Hun, Rune, Flynn, and Amelie and Fury are leaving. They leave the summit to head to the city. They're leaving in like the one helicopter. So go Amelie for stepping up for once. For not being a piece of trash human being every moment of her life. Maybe starting to redeem herself, or I don't know, she just isn't a complete, you know, not gonna watch the world burn and do nothing. So they're like all in the helicopter, and then the Asterian guard arrives and is dropping a brimstone missile on the city.
And Fury who's pretty powerful and like is rumored, you know, to work for the Asteri or whatnot, or have done work for them, is like trying to tell them, stop, don't do this, and they're not listening to her. So this is clearly a direct order from the Asteri themselves to bomb basically Bryce, but also in disguise of like, oh, we're bombing the demons, that's why we're helping you guys, or whatever.
Yeah, it was definitely like, this is, yeah, you're not
Sketchy.
really trying to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and Bryce does manage to find some shelter, but then her leg gets trapped under a lump of concrete. And then just before another bomb is dropped, Hunt swoops in and like covers her body with his own. And the city is like completely wrecked. And Bryce wakes up from unconsciousness to find Hunt beside her, like almost dead, like has like a death rattle.
Yeah. Yeah, he couldn't fly in and get her and like fly out because his wings aren't ready to fly yet from when they were cut
That's
off a while ago. So this was his only option. And he knew that going in. He's like, all right, I'm just gonna get down and I can cover her and I'll die, but I'll keep her safe. Which, even
oh.
though I'm mad at Hunt, that was really, it was kind of
I know.
heartbreaking.
I know. There's so many like heartbreaking moments in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like half dead. She was like trying to like revive him, and like she's giving him like a, not a pep talk isn't the right word. She's like, help's coming,
Yeah.
like the med witches will be here. And like, that like she doesn't even know that. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, none of that is true.
Yeah, super emotional again. And then Bryce drags herself to the gate and uses its crystals to speak to the other gates around the city and begging anyone to come and act as her anchor so that she can make the drop.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that during the drop, the body dies and an anchor is required to help guide them back to life before brain death. So, like, you need to have an anchor.
Yeah, without an anchor, you can't come back to life.
Right.
Yeah, so the reason that she kind of needs to make the drop right now, or why she's thinking of doing it in this exact instant, is because the first light that will be generated is going to heal Hunt. And also anybody who's laying along the ley lines of the gates, because the first light will get spread through, and she thinks it'll also close the portals. This first light that she can generate, it'll close all of the portals to hell, it'll save Hunt. So that's why she's thinking in this moment, like, please, I desperately need somebody to anchor me so that I can do this and we can fix this problem.
Right, that's right. And so Bryce is like calling out, no one is responding. And she's like going back over to Hunt. Then she starts hearing Danica's voice saying like light it up, and like kind of over and over again, and she finally realizes that it's Danica's voice coming from the Bone Quarter gate saying that she'll anchor her.
Yeah, she gets to make the drop with Danica.
Yeah. So Bryce like starts to begin the drop, and those in the conference center are watching in horror because they're like, a dead person can't be an anchor. So like Bryce is starting to make the drop, but like she's not gonna live through this.
Yeah, and Jessica corroborates this, and Jessica like reports to the Underking, so I feel like she's a pretty good authority on this. So everyone is like, there's really no way for her to come back. Like, Danica can't be her anchor.
Yeah. So, concerning.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. I didn't realize like when someone makes the drop, it's like monitored. Like people can watch like on a monitor like people's like power levels and like how long they have to make the drop, and that was
it's all
pretty
tracked.
Interesting.
That was cool.
Yeah, so I think it was Declan who was like watching as she's doing the drop. They're seeing that Bryce's power doesn't stop where they expect it to. It keeps continuing on until she's actually passing the level of the Autumn King's power.
Yeah.
It just keeps
she
going
passes
up.
it by like 1 decimal point or something.
Just like a
just
fuck you
enough.
To him. And then we like kind of realize that this happened because like she's giving her life for the city. to protect the city. And there was like something I think inscripted in the gate that said like those who,
it's something like the power belongs to those who give their lives to defend the city.
yes,
Something along those lines. And Hypaxia is the one who realizes, oh, it's a riddle. It's not actually just some cute, fluffy quote. It's really whenever anybody would give a drop of power to play around with the gates, all of that got stored and is now Bryce's power that she's just barreled into.
yeah. So she just got a ton of power.
Mm-hmm.
And the gate begins to shine. First light spreads down those ley lines to the other gates, lighting up every street in the city. It's sending the demons running for the portals that are now closing. Buildings are
Mm-hmm.
like repaired from the first light, and those who are injured are like healed.
Yeah, Bryce really single-handedly saves the city here.
She literally does.
Simply by dying, pretty much.
She saves everything, yeah. But instead of like starting the ascent right away, Bryce stays and is talking to like the last remnants of Danica's soul.
Yeah, and
Which was
she has 6 minutes to from when she hits the end of her power to when she has to make the ascent. So Declan's like tracking that on his Eleusian system or whatever.
yeah. And like Bryce and Danica are talking. It's also like really emotional, and Bryce is saying like she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to make the ascent." Like I'm kind of thinking to herself like she's going to stay here with Danica with like the last remnants of her. And she's like tells
Yeah.
Danica that life got too hard without her. Um and Danica says she's like, "I'm dead. I'm gone. Like don't trade your life for this piece of me that's left." Like that's not the person I knew wouldn't do that. And like Connor wouldn't want you to do that. Connor would want you to live. And Hunt, like she was like, "I know there's an angel up there like that has made you feel kind of like that spark of life and those kind of things." So she's really like rallying her to be like, you can't stay here. You need to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I love this scene so much. Also cry every time I read it. But it's also just there's like some I mean the way she writes it is really beautiful, but it was something like the friend who had not forgotten her even in death came to answer her call. And I feel like it's cool, like Danica's known all about everything that's been going on with Bryce. Like somehow over in the Bone Quarter she's able to kind of find out information, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, because she knows about Hunt and she knows how like
Mm-hmm.
Bryce feels about Hunt. So like somehow she's
Yeah.
like knows what's going on.
Yeah, and she knows that Micah, she's like, yeah, we all saw how Micah died.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
clearly, somehow they can see things going on.
Yeah, and Bryce also kind of asks like, "Why didn't you tell me about the horn?"
Yeah,
Um, and Danica says that it was to keep her safe in case the worst happened to her. And that's kind of like that about the horn.
yeah.
Danica's convinced Bryce to make the ascent and tells her that Hunt was healed with the power of first light and that he's worth going back to.
So, like how she does that, how she ends up making this ascent is because
Oh, that's
Danica gives up her entire soul and the last remnant of her soul to boost Bryce back up. So she didn't act as an anchor. She literally gave the rest of herself and all of her eternity to help Bryce get back up to her body. So I also, and her last words to her are, I love you, which is very
yeah.
fitting with the whole kind of theme of the book.
Yeah.
But I thought this was just a really, really sweet and super sad moment that, Bryce had given her life or her eternity, traded that for Danica, and then Danica in return gives hers up for Bryce.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that
Just
is
so
a very
sad.
important part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the reason that she was able to end up making the ascent.
Yeah.
So Bryce does come back. Hunt has been healed and like giving Bryce chest compressions. And when Bryce wakes up, he takes her home. And so they're home. Bryce's mom calls her at some point, and Bryce's mom doesn't know what happened with Micah and Sand, like all those things, because that was just the people at the summit that saw that.
Right.
And then Bryce ends up getting a call from Regulus.
Rigulus is apparently how you say that. Yeah.
Rigulus.
Apparently, okay. That's how you say the actual star. I don't know if that's how you say his name too. I don't know.
Okay. So Rigulus calls her and says, like, thank you for protecting the city. Like, we're going to grant you a favor. And Bryce is kind of like, oh, that's not necessary. But he's like, it's already done. And then Hunt holds up like his arm, and like where his slave tattoo was is like a C, meaning freed. So the Asteri like freed Hunt.
Yeah, so he's no longer a slave.
He's no longer a slave.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to get punished for killing archangels.
Right. I thought it was funny that Bryce was like, she was like, I know I shouldn't ask this, but like, what about Micah and Sandriel? And I kind of get that, because you're like, I don't want to bring that up, but I feel like also at the same time, like,
so the elephant in the room.
right. Like, also, how do we not address this?
Right.
And he basically says, like, that they've forgiven the murderers, but to stay silent about what happened from now on, and to use their powers with discretion and never use the horn, basically.
Right.
And he also is like, which I thought is really scary. Like, he was like, do I need to inform your mom about her need to be quiet? And Bryce is like, no, she doesn't know about Micah or Sandriel. But yeah, it's definitely a threatening, like, message.
Very threatening. Yeah.
Yeah. So the very end of like the book, Bryce is taking Syrinx for a walk and is walking like, I think near the Black Dock or somewhere where she can see across to the Bone Quarter. And she sees like the last message thread or that she had with Connor, where he was like, you know, message me when you're home safe. And she replies now, present day, she says, I'm home. And she like deletes their message thread, and she deletes the message thread that she had with Danica too. You know, signifying, I guess, her like being able to let go. And then across the way, she sees in the Bone Quarter, she actually like, it's kind of like the mist parts, and she sees like a kind of welcoming, grassy, green land, and she sees Connor there and 5 other of the pack of devils. Danica's not there. And like Connor waves, and she blows Connor a kiss. And then
another part where I just cried.
I know. Even saying it, I'm like getting emotional. It's so sad. Yeah, but then she returns home to Hun, and it's kind of like a cute line that ties it in with like the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
You probably know it better than I do.
It's something like, there's a wolf at the front door, which means it's Thursday, which means like basically Danica always showed up on Thursday, and that's how Bryce used to keep track. And then the new line, do you know the new line?
I think it was like something like, there's an angel in my apartment, which could mean it's like any day.
Yeah. Which is sweet.
Cute.
Just a nice like full circle moment of like closure with Danica, and now I'm ready to like live my life without her. Yeah,
bittersweet. Bittersweet for sure. And then we get an epilogue.
Yeah. a crazy epilogue.
The epilogue's pretty interesting. So Jessica is meeting Adis in the Oracle's park. And Jessica is like, why did you never tell me about Bryce? Like her star heritage and all that. And he says he couldn't trust anyone with that secret.
Right.
So, and for a long time, he thought that Thea's light was destroyed when she was killed by Peleus on the last battlefield.
Yeah, that's news to us in itself.
Yeah, we didn't know that Peleus killed Thea.
Yeah, no, we thought they were both good and they were both like killed. This is crazy news that Peleus is like a villain.
Yeah, so yeah, we don't know like the context beyond that, just that Peleus killed Thea on the battlefield. But here is Bryce with Thea's like power. And Adis comments that Hunt's father would have been proud of Hunt's actions. But he's like, oh, but Jessica, you knew him best. Which is like, what?
That's crazy. Like, who the heck is Hunt's dad?
Who is Hunt's dad? Jessica knows him well.
A lot to discuss there.
Yeah. And then the last kind of part of the epilogue, Jessica says that she's moved the library of Parthos, and warns Adis not to screw them over this time. And he says he doesn't plan to.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the book. And obviously that covered like a lot. And so we're going to get into more of a discussion and like really talk about everything that happened.
Yes. So let's take a quick break and then we'll jump into a spoiler-free discussion.
Yes.
All right, so welcome back. We'll jump into our discussion of the chapters. So first, let's just talk about Danica. We talked a little bit about this, but Bryce finally gets to make the drop with Danica after all, even though she just died. And like, it was such a sweet moment. I don't want to necessarily take away from that. Like, loved their goodbye moment. It was super sweet. I loved that, she remembered her in death and all of that. And I understand that she only has 6 minutes because Bryce has to make the ascent. But I just feel like, why on earth did we not get any like discussion of like, what the hell? It was just like, hey, why'd you lie to me? And she was like, to keep you safe. And Bryce is like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I do feel like Bryce just accepted that. Like, yeah, they were on a crunch time for sure. And I'm sure she was just emotional about seeing her like it. But also, like, yeah, kind of crazy that you put this thing on your friend without her, against her will, that's now making her like a real weapon, like in a way.
Yeah. Or just
a weapon and putting her at risk.
Yeah, and I feel like, I guess it keeps her safe because the powers that be don't want the horn, like to lose the horn or whatever, so they have to take care of Bryce. But I just feel like, I don't know, that was maybe something you discuss. And even so, it happened okay. But I would be like, are there any other secrets you have for me? Like Synth, you talking to Micah and him blackmailing you, the horn, obviously, just all of these different things. And you're just kind of like, anything else? Any other secrets?
Yeah, like clearly Bryce did not know a lot that Danica was doing all this time.
Yeah, it just feels very, I don't know, interesting. I would be hurt by that if I were Bryce, to find out all these secrets about my best friend that I had no idea.
Yeah, especially when you thought you knew her like the back of your hand. Like,
yeah. But Bryce is just always so chill about everything and like so accepting and loving, and so she's just like, all right, yeah, anyway, I'm just gonna die and stay here with you. So it doesn't seem to affect her feelings for Danica.
Yeah, Yeah. And it does make me think, like, I mean, obviously, this is going to protect Bryce in a way, but I don't know. I just wonder if there's like more to it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, it does make more sense now knowing that Danica knew she had this starborn power and would be one of the only people who could use the horn. It makes more
Yeah.
sense why she gave it to Bryce, because at least she knew that. So, um, but yeah, otherwise, I don't know. It was definitely a crazy move from her.
Yeah. And I hope it's not true. Like, I know when Micah was trying to wield it, he made it sound like even if Bryce was dead, he could like use her dead body or something. Like, I don't know if we know
Yeah.
any about it, if that's true, but that's kind of scary. I hope
Yeah, that's such
it's
a good
not.
point. Just carries around like her dead corpse to
God.
use a horn. That was like his plan.
I
Ew.
mean, I wouldn't put it past Sarah J Maas to like, you know, like that
Yeah,
being a possibility.
if Bryce wasn't the main character, I would 100% feel like that would be a possibility. She has not, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she would do that, but I guess no one's safe. But I feel like the main character might be. I don't
Usually
know.
has a lot of plot
Yeah,
armor, the thickest plot armor. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
true. True.
But yeah, so we've kind of heard about the Asteri and the government throughout this whole book, but I feel like we get the most of it now. Um, and I feel like maybe this is who or Danica is wanting to keep Bryce safe from after everything that we learn about them. I don't know, they're just starting to give off a very villainous vibe.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the fact that Sandriel is basically letting them know about Bryce so that they can kill her.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they would do that. And also, I mean, dropping the bomb, I think that was just a way to like kill Bryce and make it look like
Dropping
they were trying.
multiple.
Yeah, multiple bombs. Like, I think they were just trying to make it look like they were trying to help, but really they
Yeah.
definitely had a motive to kill Bryce. And I don't know, at that point, I was like, are they just trying to like destroy the city? Like,
Yeah. That's such a good point too. And
sketchy.
throughout the whole book, we've gotten this like 1984, they are watching us vibe of like, oh, there's cameras here, so I can't say what I want to say. And
Yeah.
oh, you would have to have major clearance to know where all the cameras are. So there are clearly everyone is being watched all the time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
It
know.
sounds like a scary place to live.
It does. And then the Asteri, low key threatened Bryce and her mom if she doesn't keep quiet. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've barely heard about them, but then suddenly, I don't know, maybe for book 2 they might be important because they just seem like evil here. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely learning a lot more about the Asteri. And also, I thought it was interesting, just like a side note, when Fury was telling them to stop
Mm-hmm.
dropping the bombs. Because we have this like Fury has some kind of connection with the Asteri, and I was wondering, like, I was like, she must be pretty important to like, because she said her name. She's like, this is Fury Axitar, like, cease fire, like whatever she said. And I think, forget if it was Rune or like someone was like, they're not going to listen to you. And I was like, I feel like she said her name for a reason. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm still curious, like, what Fury's relationship to them is with all this.
Yeah. Because some people do speculate she could be an Asteri or related to them, which is definitely a
Yeah.
possibility. We don't know who she is or what house she's in.
Yeah. I just feel like I mean, to say her name, I feel like they must know. They know of her. Some like she must have some kind of.
Yeah. Well, we do know well, I guess we don't know for sure, but it's been rumored that she's like done work personally for them
For them.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
so maybe
So,
that's just part of it.
but she's definitely somebody important. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I really want more of Fury in the next book. So
yeah, she seems very interesting.
we'll see. We also finally, like you guessed, found out about Bryce's power. And of course, not only did she have secret power, but she also gets extra power, making her more powerful than the Autumn King himself.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it is really funny that it was just like a little bit more than the Autumn King.
Just a tiny bit.
Just enough.
Just enough for a
Yeah.
middle finger.
Yeah, so I was like, I was suspicious this whole time. I like did not accept that Bryce had no power. I was like, I don't buy these tests. I don't think that's yeah, so I was definitely excited and like felt like, okay, at least I picked up on like one thing out of the other things that I didn't pick up on. Like the betrayal and all that. But
there's so much though that happens. I feel like it would be impossible to pick up on everything.
yeah. Yeah, but so now we know that she has this crazy power, and it is described as pure light of a star from another world from long, long ago, the gifts of the ancient Fae reborn again. Light, but nothing more than that. Not an Asteri who possess brute power of the stars, just light. So I feel like it's pretty interesting because the light is powerful in the sense that it can blind people, but it's not necessarily power. Like it's its own type of.
Yeah. I thought this was interesting too, in context of the epilogue. When we hear Ada say, that's Thea's light, I know that light anywhere, or whatever he says about it.
Yeah.
So this is like different than Rune's light, Rune's starlight, because Thea had, I guess, a different hue or something than Peleus, and Rune's starlight comes from Peleus. And so Rune's power is described as iridescent starlight, and it's just a very small seed of it. So his is more like an iridescent. I don't know. I picture more when I read these phrases. I could be totally off base here, but this is just what I imagine when I read. I imagine more of like a twinkly starlight for Rune. And then for Bryce, I imagine like a more like bright, piercing, blinding like light. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense of the descriptions. Like hers sounds like, I mean, it blinds people. And like Runes, like they said, is like just almost seems like just a little spark.
Right.
I did also think that I thought it was interesting, like Bryce hiding her power just kind of reminded me of when she said, like earlier in the book, that she lets people believe the worst about her and it shows people's true colors, because her hiding that power showed her dad's true colors. Like if he had known about her starborn power, I'm sure he would have treated her much differently, and it would be to take advantage of those powers, not because he has any interest in being a great father, as we know.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I also think for someone who is supposedly so intelligent and, thinks he's like into all of this starlight and he's like hyper fixated on researching about it, I'm curious, like, how the hell did he not know when an oracle was blinded what that could have meant?
I know. I'm reading because when we read that, I was like, that sounds like
what blinds an oracle?
Right. And like, because I think when we talked about that, we were saying how like the rumors that they would like the Fae used to be able to blind people because they're so powerful. I'm like, how did he not put that together?
Yeah.
But
it's very interesting
that he didn't. So like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. You're kind of like, okay, really? But yeah, so I think it was like a good thing because then he couldn't like take advantage of her having known that information.
That's so true. I have a little bit of a theory about the Autumn King. We may have touched on this like slightly, but now that we know that Rune and Bryce have different hues of starlight, I think that he really has been looking into the lineages, and he like purposely picked like Rune's mom and Bryce's mom because to have children with, because he thought there was a possibility of them carrying the starborn lines. Um, I don't know. And I'm just really curious about that, but I feel like there was like intent there.
I could see that because I forget exactly at what point, but I think the Autumn King said, I think it was when he talked to Bryce at the gallery when he was like, said something about like, oh, your mom like was gonna be queen, like kind of like how
Mm-hmm.
he, and maybe it was because of her lineage. Maybe like
Yeah.
the reason wasn't like love like it sounded, but it was really because like, oh, I wanted her because of her breeding potential or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And maybe like to his credit, maybe he did end up falling in love with her or something. I don't know. I will believe it when I see it. But
Yeah.
I won't believe it out of his mouth. Although he
Yeah.
did hide the cameras of that. So not that he told anybody else. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that's a potential. And I also am just doubling down on the fact, like kind of with that, that Ember Quinlan is related to Thea. Um, and um specifically Thea's daughter, I think. I think somehow. So I'm curious to see what will happen going forward if that
Yeah.
ever
Yeah,
is a thing.
definitely.
But while we're on the topic of power, I think we need to talk about Hunt too, because we finally get to see him use his full power once the halo is removed.
Yeah. And just like the foreshadowing was, he immediately kills Sandriel.
Yeah, who is an archangel. So Hunt, who is an angel, is somehow stronger than an archangel. And we know from earlier on in the book that the Asteri created the angels and the archangels. And I don't think that they would intentionally create an angel to be stronger than the archangels who are supposed to rule their continents. So that just again makes me really desperately want to ask Jessica who is Hunt's father, because I think he must be somebody else. He must not be an angel.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, but he has to have this lightning power too that no one has seen on this planet or whatever.
Right. So, yeah, his dad is definitely someone very important. And it's interesting that Jessica knows him well. Like, did they have a
Mm-hmm.
thing? Like, I
I
don't know what that
know.
comment was. Like,
I know. It makes me think like Jessica must be pretty old too.
yeah. Yeah. She seems like she kind of gives off. She seems like, I know she's not all knowing, but she knows like a lot about a
Yeah.
lot. Like, yeah, I don't know.
And she's like buddies with like Adis, a prince of hell, which is
Right.
interesting.
Like they clearly have some kind of relationship. So like feel like there's a lot about Jessica that maybe we'll get in the second book.
Yeah, I hope so, for sure.
Um
Um, I also just kind of think that it was interesting that the angels bowed to his power when he killed Sandriel. And I wonder if this could be something like the way the Fae have this innate need to listen to other Fae with power, like this pull to kind of like obey people more powerful. I wonder if there's something along the lines of that with the angels where they have this feeling like this tug to like respect power or something. And I don't know, it just makes me very curious again about who he is.
yeah, I know. I hope we find out But I feel like we have to find out in the second book, or I hope so. Hope we
I
don't have to
know.
wait till the third.
I know, right? I won't reveal what we have to know or what we will know, but I obviously really want to know too. And then the last thing about Hunt's power that I do want to say is I thought it was really sweet. So while they're, you know, flying in the helicopter over to save Bryce, Fury says something like, Bryce was a ghost for a long while, Hunt. You brought her back to life. And I thought that it was very poetic that the angel of death is the one to kind of bring Bryce back to life. Thought that was just a really sweet, poetic line. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that is, I mean, it's not what you expected. Like from the beginning of the book,
Yeah,
like when we
not at
first
all.
heard about the Ember Mortis and the Angel of Death, like I, you know, did not see this happening. And I feel like
Yeah,
it also shows that, like, I don't know, it's kind of, I'm sad for him too because like he didn't want to be the Angel of Death,
I know.
you know?
But now he doesn't have to be, right? And I think there was a
Yeah,
line like in the book too, you know, just the angel. He doesn't have to be the Umbra Mortis anymore. He's
yeah,
free. So that's
yeah,
sweet. So,
yeah, that's
okay,
exciting.
yeah, it is. So, okay, so we kind of had this huge betrayal happen not that long ago. And now, you know, Bryce said she forgave him.
Yeah.
But she hasn't really talked to him. Bryce has offered her life uh, in exchange for his to kind of become a slave. That all, you know, got turned down. Then Hunt kind of offered his life to save Bryce, and then Bryce takes the drop without makes the drop without having an anchor, basically giving up her life for him. So it's this kind of back and forth of like, you can have my life, no, you can have my life, and I don't know, it's interesting, and I'm curious what you think. Like, do you think they're end game?
I like I don't I feel like this is such a tough question because like
Yeah,
before the betrayal, I was like 100% wanted that. And after the betrayal, I just like I mean the way that they save each other, like I feel like that is a big thing between people that are like meant for each other.
yeah,
Like so
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know either. And honestly, okay, well, yes, he gave his life or, you know, potentially, obviously he lives through this, but he offered his life in place of Bryce's a couple times here. But I don't know, they don't like, does that really fix what he did? Like the betrayal? I feel like it was never a question of whether or not he loved her. That wasn't really what was so horrible about the betrayal. It was like this thing was so important to Bryce and he like hid the information he had on it. Like she wanted nothing more than to find out about Danica and what happened and to solve this, and he knew, you know, information that could have helped and chose not to do anything. So I don't know.
That
It
is
just
pretty like when you think about all that, like that's really hard to keep from like someone that you really care about.
yeah.
Like I feel like that is really messed up. Like
Yeah, I agree.
as much as like I love Hun and I love their relationship, I feel like I could see someone else coming into the picture. Like I don't know who,
Yeah. I am
but
with you. I'm with you on that. I feel like his redemption was weak. I don't know. I need I need more from you, Hunt. If you're gonna be
you
with
need
Bryce.
more than like taking a bomb for someone and
Yeah.
killing
I
themselves.
yeah, I don't know, I do.
I mean,
So,
I get what you're saying though. Like you're right. Like he definitely loved her. I mean, sorry, I was gonna bring in a Twilight reference. I feel like I should do this. I guess like it's part of the reason I switched to Team Jacob, but it was like you're taking like her car apart because you love her, but that doesn't make it okay. Like, you know what I mean?
That is a good point. That is a very relevant Twilight reference, actually.
That's kind of how it feels. Like,
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that they're very sweet together, but I'm not 100% sold. And I think there's room for him to come back. Like, I think he could redeem himself in my eyes, but I would need more than this for now. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also like feel like they should maybe talk about it more. Like I know they've been through a lot, like they haven't had time to talk about it, but I feel like they should revisit that because I feel like she kind of forgave him about it all without them ever really addressing it.
Yeah, and she forgave him thinking she was about to die, like thinking there was no future with him. So now that there is, like maybe let's talk through it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's everything that we had to discuss. This book was, just so I loved the book. I feel like once I got through halfway, I like literally couldn't put it down. So props to you for being able to read it in chunks along with us.
Yeah, it was really good. It definitely got really hard toward the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets really hard to put down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean there were a lot of twists and turns, things I did not see coming. I'm excited. Like I know the third one's going to be coming out in January. Like I'm really excited to see like where this is all going to go from here.
I know, same. I am like dying for the third book. But before that, we will read the second book with our podcast. Yes. And we'll read that in time for January 30th when the next book comes out. So if you read along with us, you'll be all caught up. And if you have read before and you're just getting prepared for the third book, come join us and we can discuss more. But yeah, thanks so much to everyone who has listened. For those of you who have not read the Maasverse, all of the Maasverse books, stop here and we'll see you next season.
Season 2.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. And for those of you who have read the Maasverse, though, please stick around because we have a lot to get into in this little chunk before we get ready for book 2. All right, so let's jump into our Maasverse discussion. This will have spoilers from Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, so if you haven't read those, stop here.
All right, yeah, let's jump in.
Okay. So one of the things that caught my eye this time while I was reading is some of the descriptions about the demons. Multiple times when Bryce is fighting these demons, it's brought up that some of the beasts have leathery wings, and that just, my mind immediately went to the Illyrians from ACOTAR.
Okay. I must have forgot the description for their wings. Like the fact that you have leathery wings, that's the Illyrians.
I don't know. I just am constantly like reading with a fine tooth comb. So maybe I'm just picking up literal like nonsense.
No, but sometimes I pick up on those things, and sometimes that one must have just, I forgot like the description of their actual wings.
That's fair. But it just makes me think about the Illyrians. Could they be a mix of fae and demons from hell? Is that how they get their wings?
I feel like with the description of the Illyrians and how brutal and like kind of like they're not evil, but they don't seem like the best people. Like I could see that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's just an interesting little tidbit. And I think that's something I'm going to be looking for in the next book. Like, could the demons be somehow related to the Illyrians? I don't know. Maybe we'll get
Interesting.
more
Okay.
information.
Something to look out for.
Yeah. Um, anyway, moving right along. So while Bryce is fighting these demons, the sunset is happening right when she pushes Ethan into the shelter, and now she's like stuck outside. And as she gets to Old City, where the Heart Gate is, the quote is, "The sunset gave way to bruised purple skies." And I would just like to ask you if that reminds you of dusk.
That does sound like dusk. That does.
I don't know. Suddenly she steps into all of this power at dusk.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I did not pick up on that on the like the first read through.
Yeah. Well, there's so much going on in these, and ever since the Dusky Nails comment, I'm just like looking for any
For
like
anything.
time frame of dusk. But I think it's just cool that she reveals herself as the heir of the Starborn Fae when she like at dusk. I just think this must be.
That does seem like a good hint. That really does.
Yeah.
Another thing, and like this might be, I don't know. I did pick up on something on the Dusk Court reading through this part. It was when Bryce is like starting the drop, and it kind of describes when she gets into that place of the drop that it's like the cradle of life. And it describes that she feels like a physical ground beneath her. And then, and I'm quoting, "and she had this sense of an entire world above her full of distant twinkling lights." And then it goes on to say like through like an ocean or something. But like I can't, it kind of like, I guess that sounds like night, but I feel like during dusk, I think you also get some stars beginning. So I thought that maybe that was maybe also a Dusk Court vibe as well.
Yeah, I actually picked up on this too. So I think, I mean, maybe we are grasping at straws here, but I think this could be a very potential. And why I think it's interesting is because this like cradle of life is like in Bryce herself. So it's like some part of herself that she's inside, which would make sense if she is part of the Dusk Court, you know, has a lineage there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just going to be waiting for this reveal. Like I'm fully invested in this.
Yeah, honestly. She also now has an 8-pointed star scarred on her chest, which is where the Starborn light seems to come from, which is what we've seen before in A Court of Silver Flames.
Right. So I feel like that just feels, just another thing that just really seems to point to the Dusk Court.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And while we're kind of talking about the numbers, a lot of numbers have come out throughout this whole book. And so I thought, I don't know, maybe this is me just like literally pulling at something that is absolutely not there. But 3 numbers come up a lot: number 6, 7, and 8. Obviously 8 we just talked about with the 8-pointed star. I'm really thinking that's related to the Dusk Court, like we've said. But also number 7 is considered the holy number throughout the book. But when Bryce lights up the gates, it forms a 6-pointed star. And that's, you know, how she closes the portals and all of that. There were 7 Asteri, but then 1 was killed by the Prince of Pit. So now we're down to 6. And then it specifically said in this set of chapters that there were 7 pack of devils, but now 1 is gone forever, aka Danica, R.I.P. But it's making them a total of 6. She sees 6 at the Bone Quarter. And I don't know, that was just a very interesting description of seeing a specific number rather than listing out their names, which we knew, or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have enough information to make a full theory on this, but I'm thinking right now, if I had to, I'm wondering if the number 6 is related to the hell realm, which is, very, that has connotations here as well.
Yeah.
But maybe 8 is related to Akatar, specifically the Dust Court. And that has me thinking, maybe the Dust Court, when Reese is talking about how there, like long ago, there was like one high fae who kind of ruled all of the courts. I wonder if that came from the Dust Court or something.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah. And then maybe 7 is related to the world in Throne of Glass. 7 is very like heavenly. Yeah, I don't know. The reason I'm thinking 7 could be Throne of Glass is because of the Bone Quarter land description. So, where Connor and the pack of devils are, it's rolling, serene hills. Not a land of stone and gloom, but of light and green.
That does kind of sound like Terrassen.
That's what it makes me think of too. That maybe, they come from Terrassen and they went back there, and 7 is sort of like this heavenly number that they would end up in this lovely area of Terrassen.
Aww, that would be sweet.
Yeah. So I don't know. Those are my current thoughts.
They're definitely, I feel like there are a lot of like the numbers definitely seem to be really present in this series, like even more so than other series.
Yeah.
So I could see like something like that.
Yeah. Just felt very intentional. So I don't know. Those are definitely grasping at straws theory there, but just interesting.
Yeah, but we'll see.
And the other thing we kind of learn is about Bryce when we find out that she is an heir to the Starborn power. She also then has claim over the Star Sword, which we've talked about before. We think is Gideon from Akatar.
Yeah, right. And they have been saying the like calls to like a lot, which we've also heard a lot in Akatar.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see. I feel like this is that sword. I feel like it has to.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, I definitely hope that we find that out in the next book, or at least more information about the Dust Court and the Star Sword. I don't know. Do you have any predictions for what we're going to find out in book 2?
In book 2, I feel like I was mostly like wondering what's going to happen with her and Hunt. Like, I am definitely thinking that there's going to be some sort of love triangle. Okay. And I don't know like who else it would be, but like I guess I don't know. I just have like a feeling maybe that's based on like her other series where I feel like there tends to be a love triangle.
Yeah.
I think another love interest.
Yeah. I think because of Tamlin, I have like trust issues too. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
I think that's part of it. Like, I'm just waiting for like Hunt's character to turn into like a shitty person and be like, oh, like he was never good. Like, I just thought he was, but there are all these red flags that I didn't see or something.
I know.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel. Like, I'm wondering what's going to end up happening with them. Then, I mean, it definitely sounds like they're going to have to be careful because of the government keeping like tabs on them and making sure she doesn't like use her power.
Right.
I feel like I can't come up with like a full plot.
I mean, theory, that would be a difficult task.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, like, I feel like she kind of saved the day. Things are
kind of like wrapped it up.
It wrapped it up a lot, so I don't, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to hear, what you have to say about book 2. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too.
So we will give more information about our season 2 soon. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to season 1. This has been super fun, and I hope that you have enjoyed reading along with us and talking about all these theories.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's come along on our journey with us.
Yeah.
It's been fun. I feel like we've gone down some rabbit holes and had some fun theories, gotten in the
made
clown
some fun
car.
references.
Yeah, I got to reference Twilight a lot, which has been fun.
Yes, yeah, and the clown car has been going full speed ahead, and we're still riding that into book 2. So
yeah, and we'll see if I have more Taylor Swift songs to bring in.
Maybe, hopefully not, because not that we want people to die, but
maybe for more fun reasons. Maybe we'll have like they don't all have to be tributes to people's death. I feel like she doesn't have that many songs that are gonna like work for that.
That's true. We'll have to make some positive tributes too.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to do a Taylor Swift episode at some point, so we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe that
100%.
We'll do that. All right. Well, thanks again to everybody. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, definitely subscribe so you can follow us along for the next season for book 2.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone.
All right, see you next season.
Yay. Thanks for attending English class today.
To keep the discussion going, join us on Instagram at the High Lady Book Club.
Make sure you do your homework for next week, and we'll see you back here.